His lecture, part 3 of 4, will cover the chemical level of organization in the human body and provide a chemical foundation for the course. The topics of organic and inorganic compounds, water, pH, and the functions of inorganic compounds such as acids, bases, and salts will be discussed. The compounds involved in the chemical processes in the body will now be examined, beginning with nutrients and metabolites. Nutrients are defined as the essential elements and molecules obtained from the diet. Metabolites include nutrients and are defined as molecules that come from catabolism and anabolism in the body. Nutrients and metabolites consist of both inorganic compounds and organic compounds. Inorganic compounds are small and usually do not contain carbon and hydrogen. Examples of inorganic compounds include carbon dioxide, oxygen, water, inorganic acids, bases, and salts. Organic compounds, on the other hand, are generally large, complex, and contain carbon and hydrogen. Examples of organic compounds include carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. Water is an extremely important molecule in the body. The chemical reactions of the body rely on water. Reactions take place in water, and as we saw in hydrolysis and dehydration synthesis, water also plays a direct role in some reactions. Water also has a high heat capacity. This ability of water to require a large amount of heat energy to bring about a change in temperature helps stabilize the temperature of the human body. We have to remember that water is one of the major components of the human body. Also, water is an excellent solvent. It can dissolve many organic and inorganic compounds. This illustration demonstrates how water acts as a solvent, allowing for ionic compounds to break into their ions in solution. This is a process known as dissociation or ionization. The ions in solution are referred to as solutes and the water as the solvent. The hydrogen bonding water displays aids in the dissociation of the ionic bonds. In the body, hydrogen often loses its electrons and becomes a hydrogen ion, H+. Hydrogen ions are sometimes referred to as protons. Hydrogen ions are very reactive and can have adverse effects on cells and molecules in the body. For example, if the concentration of hydrogen ions gets too high in the body fluids, chemical bonds can begin to break, molecular shapes can begin to change, and the cell and tissue functions can be impaired. pH is used as a measure of hydrogen ion concentration and is defined mathematically as 1 over the log of the concentration of hydrogen ions, or alternatively as the negative log of the concentration of hydrogen ions. The pH scale itself runs from 0 to 14, where the range from 0 to 7 is considered acidic, 7 is considered neutral, and 7 to 14 is known as the alkaline range or basic range. pH and hydrogen are inversely related, which means if one goes up, the other goes down. This diagram here helps illustrate the inverse relationship between pH and the concentration of hydrogen ions. As we have an increase in the concentration of hydrogen ions, we will see that we will have a decrease in the pH. As the concentration of hydrogen ions go up, the solution becomes more acidic, thus the pH lowers. On the alternate side of that, if we have an increase in pH, as pH goes up, we will find that the concentration of hydrogen ions will go down. Again, this is known as an inverse relationship. When one goes up, the other will go down. In this case, when the concentration of hydrogen ions goes up, the level of pH will go down, and vice versa. This illustration also illustrates the pH of various substances. Substances in the body that we want to take a look at are things as saliva and milk fall close to the neutral range. We see the range of pH for our blood we'll learn is between 7.35 and 7.45 on the scale. Urine ranges somewhere between 4.5 up to 8 on the pH scale. And then we see we have extremely acidic conditions in the stomach. Let's take a look at acid, bases, and salts. Acids are defined as substances that dissociate into hydrogen ions. Again, the more hydrogen ions in solution, the lower the pH will be. Hydrochloric acid, HCl, dissociates completely when in solution into its hydrogen ion and chloride ion. This is an example of a strong acid. Weak acids, in comparison, do not dissociate completely when in solution. Bases often dissociate into OH negative ions, known as hydroxide ions, and are defined as substances that can remove hydrogen ions from solution. The hydroxide ions can combine with free hydrogen ions to form water, thus removing the hydrogen ion from solution. As we have learned, the lower the free amount of hydrogen ion, the lower the concentration of hydrogen ions, the higher the pH becomes, heading towards the basic end of the scale. An example of a strong base is sodium hydroxide, NaOH, which when dissociated will dissociate into sodium ions and hydroxide ions. The hydroxide ions are capable of removing that free hydrogen ions from solution. Next, we'll take a look at salts. Salt is defined, salts are ionic compounds that dissociate into cations, a cation that is never hydrogen, and an anion that is never the hydroxide. An example of a salt is the sodium chloride, which dissociates into the cation of Na+, and the anion of chloride, Cl-. Salts are considered electrolytes. Electrolytes are inorganic compounds whose ions can conduct an electrical current in solution. pH regulation of the body is vital to maintaining homeostasis. Homeostasis being the stable environment in the body. For example, blood pH has a normal pH range of 7.35 to 7.45. Any deviation from this range can have detrimental effects on the body. To help stabilize pH, the body has several buffer systems it utilizes. A buffer is defined as a compound that stabilizes pH by preventing large changes in pH through either the removal or the addition of hydrogen ions to solution. Let's review with a checkpoint. Can you distinguish between inorganic and organic compounds? Feel free to pause the lecture while you work on your response. Inorganic compounds generally do not contain carbon and hydrogen as primary components, whereas organic compounds do. Let's try a few more questions for review. Try to define pH in your own words. How does the pH scale relate to acidity and alkalinity? pH is the representation of the amount of hydrogen ions in solution. The lower the pH, the more acidic a solution is. The higher the pH, the more alkaline or basic the solution is. The pH scale runs from 0 to 14, with 0 being most acidic, 7 neutral, and 14 the most basic or alkaline. Can you define an acid, a base, a salt? Acids dissociate into hydrogen ions in solution. Bases can remove hydrogen ions from solution. Often they dissociate into hydroxide ions, those OH negative groups. And salts are defined as compounds that dissociate into a cation and an anion, other than hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions, respectively, in solution.